We all get that urge, right? That push to level up, to achieve more, to be the best version of ourselves. I mean, who doesn't want that?
It's a pretty common drive.
But what if I told you that a huge part of that, that journey isn't just about like willpower? What if it's about something bigger?
Okay, I'm listening. Bigger how?
It's about strategically designing your environment. And hold on, before you think, I'm just talking about like cleaning your desk.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's way more than that. It's about your social circle, the routines you build, even the information you consume.
Interesting.
It's all connected. So today we're going to use these excerpts, right, from episode 8, Designing Your Environment. We're going to really unpack this whole idea. How can you consciously build, like craft an environment that helps you reach your goals?
It is kind of wild how often we just don't even think about the impact that our environment has on us.
Right.
We're so focused on the internal stuff, motivation, discipline, talent, all that jazz.
Yeah.
Right? But honestly, our environment is always shaping our thoughts, our actions, whether we're even aware of it or not.
I feel like I've heard this somewhere before.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. Behavioral psychology, environmental psychology, design thinking, all these fields, they all point to the same conclusion.
So it's not just like a self-help thing. There's actual science behind it.
Absolutely. This is legit. And the coolest part, unlike some things in life, like our genes or our past, we actually have a lot of control over our environment.
We do, more than we realize.
Way more. It's all about making choices, right, to shape the world around us. And by doing that, we shape ourselves.
So like I was saying before, we're talking way more than just tidy them up, right?
Oh, yeah. Way more.
Give me an example then. What are some specific things we can control with this? What was it? Environment design.
Okay, so picture this. Think about the people you hang out with most, the ones you're always around. Do they, energize you? Do they support what you're trying to do, your goals? Or do they kind of bring you down, pull you back into old habits?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's one element right there, your social circle.
Makes you think.
Then there's your workspace, right? Is it set up so you can focus, be productive? Or is it just clutter? Distractions everywhere, and then even your daily routine, the habits you form, the information you're taking in news, social media, even podcasts like this one.
Whoa, okay. So it all adds up.
It all contributes to this, overall environment you're swimming in 24/7.
Okay, I'm starting to see the big picture here. So it's like all these different pieces come together and they either help us or they sabotage us.
Exactly. It's an ecosystem.
But all right, let's get real for a second. I mean, this all sounds great, but what's the payoff? Why should someone listening actually care about this whole design your environment thing, besides having a clean desk? I mean,
this is where it gets really cool, actually. The source we're looking at today, it talks about some pretty amazing benefits, things I bet most people listening are working towards,
Okay, like what?
Like being more productive, feeling less stressed, even getting a boost in your creativity.
Really?
And that's not all. It can even make your relationships better, help you build those healthier habits you've been meaning to start.
Wait, hold on. How does designing your environment help our relationships? I get the productivity part, but that seems, I don't know.
Well, think about it. If all your friends are, kind of negative, bringing you down all the time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's going to bleed into your other relationships.
It's like toxic almost.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you're hanging out with supportive people, people who are driven, ambitious.
Their energy rubs off on you.
Exactly. It changes how you interact with everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like that whole saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes. But applied to your whole life, not just your friend group.
Your whole life. Wow.
And this source, they actually tie this to, get this, ultra-rich thinking.
Ultra-rich. Hold up. I thought we weren't just talking about money.
Oh, we're not. It's not about the cash. It's about the mindset. It's about being intentional, efficient with your life. Think about how those super wealthy people, they design their homes, their schedules, even who they hang out with, all to maximize their impact.
I never thought of it like that.
It's a whole different way of approaching things. And we can learn from that, even if, we're not billionaires.
Okay, now I'm really interested. But for someone who's totally new to all this, it can be a bit much, right? Where do you even start? Do I need to hire a fancy interior designer?
No, not necessarily. The key is to, start small, baby steps. The source actually breaks it down into these core elements. They're actually pretty easy to understand.
Okay, well, let's hear them then. Break it down for us. What are the key areas we should be thinking about?
First up, your social circle. We kind of already touched on this, but it's super important. Remember that saying about the 5 people you hang out with most? Well, take a minute. Think about your 5 closest friends. Do they, inspire you? Do they get excited about your ambitions? Or do they bring you down? Now, this isn't about ditching your lifelong friends, but it is about being aware of who you let into your life, what kind of energy you're letting in.
That's almost like dot curating your friend group, like you'd curate a playlist.
Exactly. Great analogy. And just like with music, you want a mix that energizes you, right?
Makes sense.
Now, next up, your workspace. Picture that place where you do your best work.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a super quiet corner of a library, maybe a busy coffee shop, maybe even a home office. But what is it about that space? What makes it work for you?
Now that you mention it.
The source, it actually talks about this tech startup with this big open office, all designed for collaboration. And then they compare that to, like, a writer who needs total silence to get anything done.
So it's different for everyone.
Totally. Got to tailor that space to your own needs.
This is making me rethink my whole home office setup.
Maybe it's time for a change. Now, how about routines? Are you like a super structured person?
I'll admit, not really. Is that bad? Do I need to change everything?
Not at all. Some people, yeah, they thrive on structure. Like, picture a professional athlete. Their whole day is planned out to the minute.
Intense.
Right. But that's not for everyone. The point is, consistency is key. Even little routines, they help you build momentum and stay on track.
So, like, what? Give me an example.
Waking up at the same time every day, having a dedicated work block, even just making your bed each morning. Those small actions, they can make a surprisingly big difference.
I never thought of it like that. So it's not about becoming like a robot.
Exactly. Find what works for you. But this actually ties into habit formation, which is another big piece of this environment design puzzle. The source talks about this habit loop. It's the cue, the routine, and the reward.
The habit loop.
If you want to build good habits, break the bad ones, you got to understand this loop. It's super important.
Okay, I feel like I've heard of this habit loop before, but break it down for me.
Okay, so let's say you're trying to start working out every morning, right?
A classic.
Classic. The cue could be something as simple as laying out your workout clothes the night before. The routine is, well, the work itself. And the reward, maybe it's that endorphin rush you get afterwards, or a healthy breakfast you love, something you look forward to.
Ah, okay. So it's like you set up those cues and rewards, and it makes it easier to stick with the good stuff.
Exactly. You're basically training your brain. But of course, breaking those bad habits, that can be trickier. We'll talk about the challenges a bit later.
Sounds good. So we've got the social circle, the workspace, routines, habits. What else is part of this whole environment design thing?
There's one more, and it's super important these days, your information diet.
Ooh, my information diet. That sounds ominous.
Think about it. What are you feeding your mind with every single day? All that news, the constant scrolling on social media, the podcasts you listen to?
Uh-oh. Hopefully this one's good.
Hopefully. But seriously, all that stuff, it's shaping you. Your thoughts, emotions, even your actions. It's powerful.
Okay, now this one hits close to home. I'm always feeling overwhelmed with information. It's hard to know what's good, what's bad, what to even pay attention to. So how do we design this healthy information diet?
It starts with being more aware, more mindful. Are you actually looking for information that inspires you, that pushes you towards your goals? Or are you just, mindlessly scrolling, letting all that negativity and distraction just seep in? This source, they actually suggest being picky about your news, even who you follow on social media. Choose quality over quantity,
It's like we're applying the rules of healthy eating to what we consume online.
Exactly. Make sure that information is serving you, not the other way around.
This is making me rethink my whole social media feed. But okay, let's be honest. This all sounds pretty idealistic, right? There's got to be some challenges to actually doing this whole environment design thing.
Oh, absolutely. It's not always easy. And there are definitely obstacles that come up. We'll dig into those in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so we've talked about why environment design matters, like the big picture stuff, the key areas to focus on. But now let's get real. What about the roadblocks, the hurdles? Because if this was easy, everyone would be doing it, right?
Exactly. And this source, it actually gets into those challenges. One of the big ones, the people around you, your existing social circles.
Okay, yeah.
So you're all fired up, ready to create this awesome environment that supports your goals. But then what happens when your friends, your family, they're not really feeling it?
They don't get it.
Maybe they don't get it. Maybe they even try to pull you back into those old habits, the ones you're trying to break.
It's like you're trying to escape, and they're holding you back.
Kinda. So how do you deal with that? Do you just, cut everyone off?
Well, I hope not. That sounds extreme.
No, it's not about that. It's more about communication, setting some boundaries.
Boundaries, okay.
You might need to have some honest talks with the people you're close to. Explain why you're making these changes, why it matters so much to you.
So it's not about pushing people away.
No, it's about finding that balance, right, where you can grow, but also maintain those important relationships.
That makes sense. And what about resources, though? Like time, money, even just physical space. Not everyone can, design their dream home office, right?
Absolutely. That's a real concern. The source talks about that, too. Not everyone has the same access to resources. But here's the thing, environment design, it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
It doesn't.
You can start small, tiny changes. Work with what you've got.
So it's about being resourceful, creative. Like maybe I can't afford that fancy standing desk,
Right.
but I can clear off my desk, maybe get some plants, make it feel nicer.
Exactly. Or maybe you can't fit in an hour-long workout, but you can squeeze in 10 minutes of stretching. Find those little tweaks that make a big impact.
I like that. Progress over perfection. But okay, real talk again, breaking old habits, building new ones, that takes willpower, right? Mental toughness. How do you deal with that initial resistance?
Remember that habit loop we were talking about?
The cue, the routine, the reward.
That's it. This is where understanding the science of habits really helps. You could hack your brain a little, set up those cues, make those routines solid, and then reinforce them with rewards.
So your environment can actually help you rewire your brain to make those good habits easier.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing. But there's also the flip side, right?
Oh, no, there's a flip side.
What about the things in our environments that are working against us?
Yeah. Like what?
I'm talking distractions, specifically digital ones.
Oh boy, my phone.
Your phone, social media, all those notifications, constantly pulling us away from, well, everything.
I know, it's the worst. And the best.
It's tough. Our devices are literally designed to hijack our attention.
So how do we fight back?
The source talks about managing your digital environment. It's about setting boundaries, creating those tech-free zones, being more aware of how much time you're spending staring at a screen.
Okay, so like turning off notifications.
Yes. Setting time limits for certain apps, maybe even having a spot where you charge your phone so it's not always right there tempting you.
Those are good tips, actually. But, even when we have the best intentions, life happens, right? You could have this perfect environment, everything dialed in, and then bam, kid gets sick, work goes haywire, car breaks down, your whole routine is shot. What do you do then?
Life is unpredictable, that's for sure.
How do you roll with those punches environment-wise?
This is where flexibility is key. This source really emphasizes that. It's a process, not like a one-time fix. You got to adjust, make changes as you go.
So it's not about being rigid. It's more about having a system that can bend.
Exactly, like a flexible mindset, but for your surroundings.
I like that. But I'm curious, is this whole idea of environment design, is it new? Have people been thinking about this for a while? It seems like it's really popular these days.
You're onto something. The source actually talks about the history of this. It's not just some trendy new thing. They mention ancient philosophy, like the Stoics. They were all about shaping your surroundings to become more virtuous, more resilient.
Wow, the Stoics. So it's not just about productivity and goals. It's deeper than that.
Right. It's about how you exist in the world. And they also talk about Eastern traditions, like Feng Shui.
Feng Shui, yeah.
It's all about creating harmony in your living spaces, promoting well-being.
So people have been thinking about this for centuries. That's pretty cool. But, we've been talking a lot about individual benefits. What about teamwork? Can environment design help with that? Or even company culture?
Definitely. They talk about that too. The source mentions how these principles can apply to teams, organizations, even families. Imagine a workplace that's designed to encourage collaboration, boost creativity, make people feel good.
That sounds amazing. So it's not just about you, it's about creating a ripple effect.
Exactly. And they emphasize how all these elements, they work together. The social circle, the workspace, the routines, the habits, even the information. It all fits together.
Like an ecosystem for success.
Exactly. It creates this awesome feedback loop. When you change one thing, it can impact everything else.
This is really eye-opening, but for someone listening who's like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this, where do they start? It's still a lot to take in.
I get it. And that's what we're going to cover in the last part of our deep dive. We'll give you some concrete steps to actually start designing your own environment for success, even if you're starting from scratch.
All right, so we've gone deep on this whole environment design thing, right? We talked about the science behind it, the benefits, even the challenges that pop up.
Oh, it's a lot to digest.
But now it's like, okay, how do we actually do this? For the people listening who are like, all right, I'm ready to make some changes, where do they even begin?
It's easy to get overwhelmed, I get it. But remember that key thing we keep coming back to from the source. Start small.
Baby steps.
Exactly. You don't have to turn your whole life upside down overnight. Just pick one area, one thing to focus on first.
Okay, so where do you even start? Social circle, workspace, routines, habits, we talked about a lot.
Think about where you feel the most stuck right now. Where's the biggest pain point? Is it your workspace? Total chaos? Can't get anything done? Or maybe it's the people you're hanging out with, draining your energy.
Find the thing that, if you fixed it, would make the biggest difference.
Exactly. Even a small change there can have a huge impact on everything else.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's say, you've decided, all right, my social circle needs work. But some of those people, they're your friends. It's hard to distance yourself.
Yeah, that's tough. It's you want to grow, but you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Exactly.
It's not about cutting people out completely. Think of it more like Being a little more careful about what energy you let in, you know? Like, maybe start by expanding your circle. Meet new people who inspire you, people who are on the same wavelength, working towards similar things.
So add instead of subtract.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't a one-time thing. Your environment, it's always changing, right?
Life happens.
As you grow and change, your environment has got to adapt too.
That's a good point. So step one, start small, focus on one area. What's next?
Don't give up. Be persistent. This isn't a sprint. It's a marathon, right?
You'll hit some bumps in the road.
Oh, for sure. You'll mess up, fall back into old habits. It happens to everyone. Be kind to yourself, acknowledge it, and then just get back on track. Keep going. Consistency is key. That's what they emphasize in the source.
It's like building a muscle, right? Takes time and effort. Any tips for, keeping that motivation up?
Celebrate those small wins. Did you finally clear off that desk? Stuck to your morning routine all week? Those are big deals. Acknowledge those wins, even if they seem tiny.
It all adds up, right? But let's be real. Sometimes life just throws a wrench in things. You could have the perfect setup and then, boom, your kid gets sick, work explodes, everything goes out the window. How do you handle that kind of stuff, environment-wise?
Happens to all of us. That's where you got to be flexible. The source talks about that too. It's not about creating this rigid structure where if one thing goes wrong, the whole thing falls apart.
Gotcha.
It's more like having a set of principles, guidelines that you can rely on.
Even when things are crazy.
Especially when things are crazy. You adapt, right? Maybe your morning routine has to be shorter some days. Maybe you got to work from the kitchen table for a while.
So flexible mindset, but for your environment.
You got it. And remember, there's no magic formula, right? What works for me might not work for you. It's about figuring out what you need. Experiment, find what fits. Create an environment that helps you reach your goals in your life.
I love that. This whole deep dive has been so insightful, covered so much, but I think the main takeaway of this, we have way more control over our lives than we think. It's not about being perfect. It's about making choices, little choices every day that add up to big changes.
You said it. It's about being intentional, creating that life you want.
Such a great point to end on. And for everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What's stuck with you from this deep dive? What's one thing you're going to change in your environment this week? Let us know in the comments, and until next time, keep on designing those awesome lives.